This is episode 98 of the Why Not Me podcast, Clearing Away the Old. I'm your host, Danita Bremer. In this podcast, I help spiritual moms heal to feel whole and be successful. Because when you heal yourself, you heal generations. Okay, it's been a while since I have podcasted because I was out of town taking my daughter to college and I batched some episodes ahead of time. And so I've been home for a week and I've been thinking about what I want to say as we approach episode 100, which, by the way, if you did not already know, I am doing a 100th episode giveaway. If you listen to an episode, leave a 5-star rating, leave a review, and then fill out a really quick Google form. The link is in the description of this episode. You can win a pair of Apple AirPods for you and for whoever it is that referred you to the podcast. So I hope you win and I hope you want to win. Thank you so much for helping me spread the word about this podcast. I like it. I'm enjoying it. I hope you enjoy it as well. And you have until October 18th. I'm going to record episode 100 on October 19th, and then it's going to release on October 20th, and I will announce the winner in that episode. So, when I first started podcasting, one of the things I was afraid of was that I would run out of things to say. And now it seems like I have the opposite problem. It seems that I'm almost overwhelmed with which idea to bring to the podcast each week. So there's another reason to leave your review, to let me know what you enjoy and what you're struggling with, what you want to hear more of. But really, I think this means that I'm on the right track of feeling abundantly inspired and that the things that I've chosen to talk about are the things that I am meant to talk about, right? Because we all have our own individual purposes. Today, I want to ponder with you, and I don't have this really fully formed. This is going to be one of the episodes in which, as I speak it out loud, it becomes more apparent to me what I'm actually trying to say. But I do have an idea here. The main idea I want you to walk away with after listening to this episode is you might feel stuck because you haven't fully cleared away the old. Okay. So I want to just kind of weave together some ideas and thoughts and some story from my own life to help you understand what I mean by this. I have been reflecting a lot lately on my own healing journey and reflecting on what I can do to help my clients, what I can do to help with the things that I hear and see often that people are struggling with in the world. And it seems to be that this analogy that won't leave my mind, that's kind of one reason why I was like, I really need to talk about this analogy on the podcast because somebody needs to hear it because it's not leaving my head. I think that's one reason why I was meant to bring this to the podcast today. But the other reason was because I don't know if you ever have this experience where you have several different experiences in your life that all seem to be from like different areas of your life that coincide or they sort of come together when you hear this one thought or idea, right? And that's what this analogy is. So I'm just going to call it the garden analogy. It just seems like several things that I've been experiencing and thinking about and pondering and considering have converged in this analogy. Okay. So, one of the things is my healing journey. One of the things is my entrepreneurship journey, which I know not all of you are entrepreneurs, but I think that you can pull some principles out of this. And honestly, my healing journey and my entrepreneurship journey are very intertwined. Another thing is I've been thinking about this idea that our only job as individuals, as members of the church, as people who believe in Jesus Christ, is to remain open, to allow the Lord to do the work in us, to transform us, to give us a new heart, so to speak. So I've been thinking about that. I've been reflecting on my healing and entrepreneurship journeys. And I've also been thinking about considering leaving social media again and possibly for good. Now, these things all seem to be sort of separate, unrelated entities in my life. I've been thinking a lot about in relation to leaving social media, this desire to create more, which you might think is kind of silly. I mean, this podcast literally comes so easily to me that it doesn't even feel like I'm creating anything, even though logically I know that I'm creating something, but it just feels so aligned and easy that it doesn't feel like that. So I've been thinking along the lines of leaving social media about why I want to leave social media and what, honestly, for me, is this idea of creating more space for creation and for doing the things that I really want to do in the world. Like the question is, what could you accomplish if you weren't spending time scrolling or posting or commenting, those kinds of things? And it's not that I don't like doing those things. I actually really like social media. In a lot of ways, it makes me feel connected and informed. But when I think about leaving social media for good and where my energies and efforts and time and focus could be put forth, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just scratching the surface. And there's so much I want to do in the world. And being on my phone or on the computer on social media just isn't one of them. And as I sort of evaluate my life, I realize that I'm just spending way more time on social media than what I want to, and getting way fewer results, way fewer things that I want to create in the world are being created because I'm spending my time and efforts and energies on something that really isn't getting me anywhere. So, this idea between creation and consumption. And then the last thing that is one of these things that feels separate, but they all seem to come together is one of my mentors is Brooke Snow. She has a fantastic podcast. It's called the Brooke Snow Podcast. It's especially for LDS folks. And she got me hooked on meditation and specifically Christ centered meditation. And in one of her meditations, she does a meditation that's specifically for the abundant cycle. The abundant cycle is an idea that I learned from Brooke that is in opposition to the pride cycle. And so there are 4 parts to the abundant cycle: being open, being receptive, being grateful, and being giving. And so all of these different things have kind of coincided in my life, these different reflections and tools that have come across my radar. And actually, I think this metaphor of the garden is actually from Brooke Snow as well. So when I heard this metaphor, and I can't quite place if it was in one of her podcasts or one of her lessons, I don't know. She was talking about when we plant a garden, we have to clear away the old garden. I mean, I live in the suburbs, so there's like a designated garden spot in my yard. Actually, there isn't right now, but there used to be. And every year when we would plant the garden, which we haven't done for a few years, we would have to pull out the old plants, the old zucchini, the old tomato, the old cucumber, the old carrots, whatever it was that got left there. We'd have to kind of weed them out, right? They sort of died and withered away, but the stems and the tops of the plants are still there. To pull those out, throw them away. And then you have to prepare the soil, right? So I think Brooke was talking about this in terms of clearing away the old. And in her program that I'm in, she was talking about clearing tools and how we can help people clear away the old. And so I was thinking about this garden analogy and clearing away the old, preparing the soil, sort of breaking up the chunks, maybe even adding some fertilizer, right? Before we even do anything, before we even put any seeds in, right? It's this idea of being open. Right? I mentioned in the abundance cycle, the first step is being open. Actually, there's not really a first step. It's kind of a cycle. It's a loop. So one of the parts is being open. And as I was listening and pondering and thinking about how we plant a garden and how it could be an analogy um, for healing and for making progress, I was that caused me to reflect on my healing journey, and that caused me to reflect on my entrepreneurship and this journey of trying to build a business and those kinds of things, which, like I said, is they're like in tandem. My healing journey and my entrepreneurship journey are in tandem. And I just had this thought. I was out on a walk one morning and I had this thought like, oh, maybe that's why I haven't made as much progress as I've been wanting. Like I haven't made as much money in my business, or I haven't healed as much as I thought I should by now. Maybe it's because I didn't stop to clear away the old. And there's a couple thoughts I have to offer you here. When we think about the analogy of planting a garden, we clear away the old kind of all at once, right? We take the spot, we're like, okay, we're going to plant a garden in this spot, and we weed everything out, we get all the grass out, we get all the old plants out, we turn over the dirt and the soil, maybe we rake the rocks out if there's some rocks in there. And we sort of do all of that work before we plant anything. Now, I don't think that that's always what it's like as humans if we're talking about sort of our spiritual, mental, emotional, physical lives, right? It's sort of like the idea in the gospel of I'm just thinking of Jacob 5, the allegory of the olive tree, and how the Lord says that we clear away the evil or the corrupted tree in proportion to the good that is growing, right? So this is not exactly analogous to this garden idea, because when we're planting a garden, we kind of clear everything away all at once and then we plant the garden, right? And that's not really how it works. Um, as people, as humans in the world that have wounds and have healing to undergo, we clear away the old, we clear away the things that are no longer useful in proportion to the good that is growing within us. So that's like one thing I just wanted to point out is that when we're talking about human hearts and souls, when it's really not exactly the same as planting a garden in the soil, because the clearing part doesn't happen all at once. It happens as it's needed, as we come across things, as we bump up against walls and like, ooh, there's something here that I'm not able to kind of get through, right? So there's that. But as I was reflecting, I was thinking, I kind of feel like my journey, at least with healing and entrepreneurship, and really entrepreneurship has been the container for my healing as I have tried to become more successful as a coach and help more people and make a bigger impact. The things that I've bumped up against have been the things that I've had to heal in myself. Like, oh, I don't really feel comfortable being seen in front of people. Yeah, I'm going to have to solve that problem if I really want to make an impact, right? So I go out and I try to be successful, and then I bump up against something. And then I heal that thing, and then I make a little bit of progress. And then I bump up against the next thing, right? This also reminds me of the book. I'm going to forget the author's name. Oh, Ryan Holiday. The author is Ryan Holiday, and the book is called The Obstacle is the Way. So it's this idea that whatever obstacles we come up against, we can't go around them, we can't go over them, we have to go through them. We have to address the obstacle. And then once the obstacle is addressed, then we make more progress, right? But what I was thinking on this walk was that essentially what I did is I kind of started healing or making progress in my own heart, in my own soul. And then I jumped right to like, I want to help others do this. And it's kind of like I planted a garden, I grew the garden. It had some good fruit in it, but it also had lots of weeds in it. It was a total mixture of like good, beautiful flowers and vegetables and fruits and like gnarly weeds. right? And that's how we all are as humans. We've got so much goodness in us. And there are things in us that we want to change that we don't like, right? But instead of clearing away the space even a little bit, I just like started planting seeds. So just imagine this garden with flowers and vegetables and fruit trees and tons of weeds and briars and vines growing in. And instead of clearing away space, I just said, okay, I want to plant this seed. I'm going to try to go help people. Right. And it just like was such a light bulb moment for me that I realized like, yeah, I didn't really slow down to clear out some of the space. I kind of did that little by little. Like I would feel really empowered, like, oh, here's a thought that I want to believe about myself. Like, I am doing good in the world. Right. And then anytime something came up against that thought, like I yell at my kids or I say I'm going to record a podcast and I don't do it. Right. It's like, ooh, that doesn't feel like it's truth against this thought that I'm trying to believe it in myself, which is I'm doing good in the world. Right. And so it's been like, okay, I'm going to plant a seed and then I wait for the seed to grow and it grows a little bit, it sprouts. And then I'm like, wait, it doesn't have space to grow. So right around that seed, I pull a few weeds. And as I was walking and thinking about this analogy of the garden and cleaning away the space, creating space, I was like, oh yeah, I never really did that. Like I've created a little space as I've gone along, but I haven't taken the time to slow down and create space for the seeds that I really want to plant, for the things that I really want to create in my life. Right. And that's one thing that I think about as I'm considering completely leaving social media. And I'll be honest, I'm also considering not completely leaving social media, but maybe leaving social media for personal reasons, but only using it for my business. And maybe it being kind of like a lighthouse where I don't go in and I comment or I'm not in DMs. It's more just like putting content out there, like a platform to just put my things out. That's one of the things I'm considering. Right. So I'm trying to not be so black and white about it. But as I think about spending far, far, far less time on social media, it makes me think about, oh, yeah, it's like clearing space for the things I really want in my life. And then it made me just think of all of you and of my clients and my family and friends and the things that I hear people talking about what they want in their lives. They want more time. They want to be more intentional. They want to feel like they are not just going through the motions, but they're really living life. They want to be able to travel. They want better relationships with their kids and their spouse and their parents and their siblings, right? They want a better relationship with God and with Christ and to develop their testimonies, right? And my question is if we live in a world that constantly puts things in, and we don't slow down to take things out and be like, oh, this doesn't fit anymore, or gosh, I outgrew that, then of course we're going to feel like we're stuck, right? Of course we're going to feel like there's no space. Of course we're not going to create the things that we want because we don't have enough wiggle room to create it. And we're going to meander a bit here because this makes me think of art. For the longest time, I was so focused on like efficiency and doing things the, quote unquote, best way for efficiency. And then one day I thought, art, like painting a picture, not very efficient. You always have to have some paint left over. Even even planting a garden, not always the most efficient thing, right? We plant a row of carrots and then we have to pluck some of them out so that some of the carrots can grow to be full carrots. And then they're not just so squashed together that they're all these just like teeny little skinny carrots, right? Not very efficient. God is a God of abundance and a God of overabundance. And so it's this idea that we plant 100 seeds, but then we have to pull out 75 of them to get 25 really good, healthy, strong fruit. And I sort of think that in our culture, we don't pluck enough out. We don't make enough space for the things we really want, right? We don't even stop to decide, what is it I really, really want, right? Because that would cause us to slow down and be like, what do I want? Okay, I want to feel healthy and strong. All right, well, what does that mean? What habits do I have to have in place? I have to eat foods that are really nourishing, right? I have to stop eating all this prepackaged crap that our food stream offers us that's easier and cheaper. It's harder to eat healthy, to eat in a way that actually nourishes our bodies. It requires us to have to slow down and make intentional choices, right? Even if I'm going back to this analogy of the garden, do you want an entire garden of just carrots? Or do you want a few carrots and a few tomatoes and some cucumbers and some zucchini and some lettuce? And like, do you want a whole salad? Right? Or do you want, I'm just going to be the carrot gardener and I'll go down the street to get the lettuce and to get the cucumbers and to get the tomatoes? Right? And we'll trade. That is one way to do it. Right? But most of us with kind of a home garden, we plant the entire salad. And we have to be a little bit intentional. How many of us, I'm totally in this boat, have planted things and then we're like, I don't really like eating that so much. Like, okay, it might be fun to plant some zucchini, but I only eat like a few zucchini in a whole season, right? And there's so many zucchini, it's overflowing, right? This is what I mean by God is a God of abundance and overabundance. We plant one seed and we get way more than we can handle, right? So, where am I going with this? I'm going to bring it back to what I want you to take from this episode, which is that you might feel stuck because you haven't taken the time, the energy, the effort, the attention to actually clear some space in your life and to make some decisions about what you want, right? I'm going to bring another analogy in, the analogy of clearing out a closet, right? I've lived in the house that I'm in for 16 years now, and I'm actually pretty good at checking in and clearing out my closets. I used to do it several times a year when my kids were little and they were growing out of their clothes 3-4 times a year. I would use that as an opportunity for me to like reassess my own closet, right? But in the last few years, I just been putting stuff in the closet and not taking stuff out of the closet, right? And then I stand there at my closet and I'm just like, I don't even know. I don't even know what to wear. It's really easy to figure out what you want to wear when every single thing in your closet is something you love and that fits you, right? But what that requires is when you bring something new in, you kind of have to assess, is there something old that doesn't work anymore? And we're not very good at that in our culture. We're really good at consumption. We're not very good at clearing, right? And if our only job as disciples of Christ is to remain open, to have open hearts, open minds, so that the Lord can then do his work in us, this idea of being open kind of to me necessitates reassessing every once in a while and letting go of some things, right? It could be physically letting go of, mugs in our kitchen cabinets, broken, I don't know, I'm thinking of like the small kitchen gadgets that we all have and accumulate. And sometimes they break along the way and we just shove them back in the counter or in the cabinet and being like, oh, actually, I'm going to get rid of this. Right. I had a toaster oven in my cabinet for years. And finally I was like, I never take this out and I never use it. I'm just getting rid of it. Right. But we have to stop and we have to look at what is there, whether it's our closet with our clothes, whether it's our kitchen cabinets, whether it's our minds, right? Our belief systems and what are our feelings in our bodies? What's in our heart? Are there some heartaches that are there? Right? This is not something that we are taught. We're taught to just add, not to subtract, right? And it really requires us to slow down and to make decisions, which is hard work for our brains, right? Even just physically, we can't just eat, and drink without having some waste, right? And the waste comes out in pee and poop and sweat, right? And if we never, like if we held it all in, that is so unhealthy for us, right? We would have to eventually go to the doctor if we held it all in. If we're just constantly adding, then there becomes a stoppage, right? A blockage. And that is like this feeling of feeling too full and of feeling stuck, right? So this is the idea, is that you might feel stuck in some way because you haven't taken the time to clear away the old. All right. That's enough for now. And so are you. Don't forget to enter the podcast giveaway. And if you want some help on what I mean in this analogy to clear away the old, go to my website, danitabremmer.com, and schedule a free session with me. Until next time, go be you and follow the spirit.